My name's Rowena Taylor. I'm a graphic designer. I work for Key. I also have my own client base. I set up in 2010, so I'm going into my 13th year next year. So that's a bit about me. When I did a bit of homework about coming into this discussion this evening, the underlying theme was economic downturn and recession. And the first thing that I thought of was, are we talking ourselves into this problem? Because the more I read about it, the more I'm convincing myself that we are. So for example, a couple of weeks ago when the autumn statement came out in the news, I listened to it and heard about it, and I was a bit like, oh gosh, this isn't good. And I started worrying about my own business. And for a few days or maybe a week, I reined back on my personal spending and just was a bit more sensible. And then I kind of weaned myself off on the news and stopped listening to that. And then my spending habits came back, and it's like I'm back to normal. So that's a personal kind of situation that I'm in, and how I'm kind of
dealing with it.
Yeah.
I'll pick on you now, because you've got quite a big business and quite a successful business, and you've been through funding rounds and you've spoken to a lot of investors over the years, and you still do. What's your thoughts on it, and a little bit about yourself before you?
Yeah, sure. I'm Simon. I'm one of the co-founders of Crowdfunder. We're the UK's largest crowdfunding platform. We're not an equity platform. We're a rewards-based crowdfunding platform. We sit somewhere between, and also into maybe just giving space, where we have worked with communities and charities and individuals who are trying to raise funds for the things they're trying to achieve and start in their community or whatever it might be. So we range in that space. We are, I suppose, noticing a change, but I don't think the change has been anything that we're going, that is an indication of a recession starting. You know, we work in a space where, you know, arguably you might think that we're vulnerable because, you know, we're talking about donations, but actually donations are pretty well connected to people's hearts and the things that they put up there as being important. So it might be that you know, people are reining back a little bit on other spending because they're nervous about things, but we're not seeing a significant change. We might be seeing a slight change in some volume of pledges, but actually probably our average pledge sizes and the sort of money that's coming through the platform is going up slightly in individual giving amounts rather than sort of quantity. So yeah, and in answer to, sorry, the actual question, which is around, are we talking ourselves into a recession? I think the media is so hard to follow and so sort of driven by a commercial layer that do we actually ever know really whether or not we're being told something? I don't want to get like, are we following something, you know, a media outlet's ability to try and get eyes on it? And, you know, we're talking earlier about the first thing that you hear is something's happening. The next day, the graphics department of the News Corp has created the apocalyptic, you know, headline and graphics that we're all now going to look at for the next whatever until the next thing happens. So we've sort of commercialised the media, haven't we? And I think that we all pick one and follow it. And actually, that's a little demeaning, but we don't all pick one and follow it. But we are sort of being heavily influenced by it, and I think that we can talk ourselves into something, and I think that there is without a doubt a difference in the financial environment now than it was, you know, since that brilliant mini statement, and even, you know, the last few years, that will be noticeable to some degree, but I'm not sure it's total doom and gloom and we've got to stop everything.
What would you advise businesses to do to try and slowly change that narrative to your way of thinking, as opposed to
the narrative that we are going
the narrative that I've got, you know, and I know a lot of individual cases are different, right? But what would you pick on you first?
I don't think you can.
Yeah.
I think you go bankrupt trying to change a view which is massively out of your ability to control. I think what you have to do is you keep talking, you keep business as usual to some degree, and you've got to keep an eye on what's going on out there and what changes you're seeing, and you need to have a mind, have a sort of controls on cost and be prepared and have plan A, B, C and D, because I literally, I mean, I don't think you can go, my business is going to focus on trying to change people's minds, whether or not something's going to happen.
In terms of your marketing and your comms, what kind of...
So we're trying to reassure people that projects are still getting funded. So we talk about, in our business, we can be quite analytical, so we can talk about numbers a lot. So we talk about projects added, and projects for us are people who add a project to the platform, right? So you go onto the platform, you want to raise money in some way or for something, and you start building your project. So you give us your name and details, and you start saying a bit about you. And we have anywhere between 200 and 300 around that number added every day on the platform. So they get added every day. Lots of them are absolutely crazy stuff. They don't go live. They sort of just sit there and whatever. They don't get funded. But we refer to those internally as projects. But actually, what they are is they're stories, and they're people's real things that they're dealing with in their life. So they might be, they're trying to open up a cafe that helps people with mental health issues in the park in Poundbury, or they might be, we've just had some other ones there, there's theatres in Bridport and all over nationally, right? So these are stories, these are things that people are trying to change their lives and change their community's outlook on certain things. And our strongest, most effective marketing message is that these things are the things that are important and they're happening. Yeah. So, we're closing projects every day, and those projects are then going on to be realised in, the cafes opening or the pubs being bought by the village or whatever it is, those sorts of things. They're happening. And so we just keep on communicating that, you might be watching that on the news. We're trying to get a load of our stories on the news. In fact, last night there was 2 stories of crowdfunded ones. There's a power station in East London, which is an amazing project, a street in East London, camping out, literally protesting on their streets until they raise enough money so the whole street can become self-sufficient in their energy, and they're buying solar PV and all that sort of stuff. Those are positive stories that are happening, and they'll continue to happen, recession or not. And regardless of how deep that recession is, people are resilient and they'll get on with it, and they'll follow through. But there will definitely, undoubtedly, be challenges along the way for businesses. Regardless of whether it's real or talked into, it's going to be.
Been in the digital space for a few years now. All I hear about is storytelling. That's all I hear about. Whether you're selling a pair of shoes or a holiday, you've got to tell a story. Right? You really, that's a big part of what you do. I'm a bit of a sceptic, right? I see a pair of shoes, I don't really want to know a story behind them, or I really don't want to know how they're going to impact my life. They're a pair of trainers, I'll go running in them, that's great, right?
Say you're somebody who's got shin splints, and that pair of trainers is the only pair of trainers you can run in.
Well, talk to me a bit more about the importance of a story for a business, because I'm a little bit...
We're human. We're human, right? And there's a book called Sapiens, and if you ever read that book, we go back so far, and all we do is we create stories. We like talking about things. When you meet somebody, you want to talk to somebody about something that has impacted your life, something that excites you. If you don't do that, we'd all be boring. We'd be walking around doing, just be plain, wouldn't we? So when a business is trying to sell something, they need to grab somebody's attention. Because you'll just, especially in this industry at the moment, you just swipe up. I had this conversation earlier on with you.
Yeah, can we just to interrupt a second? Okay, stories thing. The whole Instagram, they call it stories, but it's not, is it? Because you're just scrolling through. So how can a business and a brand tell its story in a fraction of a second in amongst someone's Instagram feed?
But that is the game, though, isn't it?
Yeah, and how would you... you've got experience.
It's constant, isn't it? Ever changing. I can't tell you exactly how to do it right now, because as soon as I leave this room.
Yeah,
It could
it'll change. Yeah.
You know, and I said to you, work on the basis of you've got a few seconds, 3, maybe 6 seconds to grab somebody's attention for your history. Game over. That's just the way that I've seen it in moving content. It's a bit different with stills. You know, Lara's probably seen it a bit different with stills, being a stills photographer. You know, you've got a good image and you capture somebody there. Great. But with moving image, you've kind of got to play that out. So yeah, that's not an easy question for me to answer.
I'd say one thing that I do as a designer is, and something that keen digital might have noticed, something I question when they're briefing me a project is I will ask what is the personality of this brand. So it might be the design of a new website for Holiday Park, or I might be working on some packaging for a tea company. My question is always, what is the personality? Because everything needs to stand out differently from the crowd, and to have a personality, unique one, that's what kind of elevates it to a different position. So it sounds a bit random, and I'm coming from a creative brain, but and I will ask, okay, so this is a brand product I'm working on. What tone of voice is it?
Yeah.
What's the tone of voice? What shoes is it wearing?
Yeah.
Where does it shop? And then form this brand, form this personality, and then the brand kind of can, have a little life of its own.
Do you ask
People by people, don't they?
those questions to? Are you asking those to the founders or the
Clients. Or the end users?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who do you ask them to?
Clients, because I get briefed on projects from marketing directors, so it always gets filtered down to me.
Yeah.
And then I will go back to them and ask them that question.
Yeah, because there's someone in this. There's someone in the audience that I work with quite a lot. We do a lot of user research. So and I know Screwfix do a hell of a lot of user research, so I'm not going to pick on Becky. How many businesses out there actually here listen to their users, their guests, their customers? How many? If do you do that? So do you? Yeah. Do you get their input into your business model and all that kind of stuff? How do you do that? Sorry. Do you go up to them and say, fill out this survey, or how do you go about gathering that insight so you can brief in a...
Both online and offline, you get customer surveys and feedback all the time. The group that we have staying with us, the upside, the downsides, improvements that can be made, what would like to be happening. We get it, we act on it, we acknowledge it.
Do you get resistance? Do you get people just... How do you filter out the noise from the actual insight?
Generally, it's pretty consistent and we find it pretty reliable. It's often something that you're kind of aware of, and it reinforces something that you've already seen identified as a business.
Yeah.
Of course, there's other elements which you tend to dismiss because it's clearly just someone having a bad day.
Yeah.
But no, by and large, I mean that's what the needs of the customer drives the business.
Do you get any really big? Have you had any really big surprise? Or is it always I kind of know that there's something not right?
Not surprises as much as a reinforcement of where we believe the gaps are and what we need to do to fill those gaps.
Yeah.
No great surprises, but certainly a reinforcement of decisions that we know we need to make.
Yeah. That makes sense.
It's trying to stand out above that noise, and naturally people are going to freak out and think, oh, we're in recession, so I'm not going to spend any money. But both of us have come, I don't know Rowena, it's probably the first time I've ever met, both came to the same conclusion with our spending habits. Naturally. So it's going to happen. We've been through a recession already. You said, didn't you, in 2010? We came through it. You started a business in a recession.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we've gone through a pandemic. We've coming out the other side. We're progressive.
I would say there's an opportunity in a recession to change the narrative, and to change the narrative into a positive. So you have to last time we had a recession, you have to change your way of thinking. In a way, it's a great opportunity to turn your thinking around and pull yourself out the ground.
And secondly,
social media is, I think, around building brand, because you're not on Facebook thinking, I'm looking to try and start a community cafe. There's an advert, that's timely. It's like, doesn't really work like that for us. Build brand. Partnerships, sort of like how do you build it? Partnerships are really important for us. So, you know, one of the things that we do at Crowdfunder, which is different to any of our competitors, is that we have a thing called extra funding, really originally and creatively named. You need to get extra funding on your project. But what that is a program where you can put money into a pot and put criteria against that, and then they will be able to put the money out that so it's their CSR funding pots, it's their money that they put into certain things through their councils or whatever, and they'll put that into the projects that are ticking those boxes. So as those projects come on, they tick the boxes, they say yes, we're trying to do this, and then they might get a ping in their inbox saying British Airways or Aviva, these are some of our partnerships, Co-op and those sorts of things, they want to support what you're doing, and then they'll literally match fund the money that you're raising from the crowd. So that will kind of happen like. But what are probably our strongest sort of new kind of, I suppose, exposure is through those partnerships. So we end up giving stories to BA to put on BA's social media channels, going, look what we do with our, not being filmed on because I don't want to reduce our CSR programs to that. They're sort of they're effectively supporting amazing community projects. And they're involved in it, and so they're getting the stories. So they go out on their social media and they talk about the stories that are getting funded.
Was that they did a project where a chap bought a plane ticket, went over to India to see his mum? Was that to do with you?
I've got no idea. Maybe.
But that's the whole thing, though. So going back to the whole story thing. So their BA used that of, you know, that was our way of facilitating that person to go back and see their mum that haven't seen them, go back and surprise them. You know, that whole thing.
We get all sorts of that. I mean, maybe that could be us. It could be there's all sorts of things like that happening.
Yeah. The reason why I say it is because a client put it to me and said, "We want to do something like this." So it comes back round, you know. So just sort of kind of gone off on a bit of a tangent there.
No, there's a real human aspect to that as well. It's nice stories, isn't it? And I'm just thinking to the Christmas adverts that you all see out at the moment, the famous ones like John Lewis, and the angle that they've taken this year is not about excessive spending, but it's all about being kind and, you know. So it's that sort of...
Yeah, so those adverts, we're all really annoyed about those adverts because 3 of them are our clients and they've used a competitor. So they work with Neighbourly, who they're not actually a crowdfunding platform, Neighbourly, but they are a corporate sort of CSR engagement platform. And the people who are in those adverts are the projects that they've supported through those other CSR programs.
Classy.
Classy. But I think that's the important thing is that they're trying to tone down the hard sell, aren't they?
Yeah.
And on Crowdfunder, our existing partnerships are putting more money in on cost of living issues. So we're talking about the difference between the recession and the cost of living crisis. There is definitely a cost of living crisis going on. You know, infinitely more food banks needing a lot more money and more support immediately. And we're seeing a lot of that. And then nearly all of our partnerships are responding to that. So Aviva are putting a lot of money into that through our platform. So they're putting millions of pounds into food banks and things like that. And Co-op are doing the same, as well as British Airways and other partnerships. So there's a definite
But
connection.
if that's what the media is kind of talking about, and the area that is hot at the moment, is that an opportunity for businesses to also do similar things? I don't know how you would do that, but it's to kind of hook into that.
I don't know what part of education. Now, TikTok. Jumping around a little bit.
Yeah.
You've got 500,000 followers on TikTok.
Yeah.
How?
Just through mimicking content of successful creators and then I guess replicating it with my own little style. Yeah.
How many businesses have got TikTok?
Yeah.
Screwfix have. Yeah. Obviously. You have?
A little bit.
A little bit.
I've got an interesting story about TikTok.
Well, we'll come to that. Now, the reason I wanted to kind of throw TikTok in here as a bit as a curveball was talking about the kind of younger generation, and that kind of. I won't pick on you too much, Joe.
You're okay.
I was utterly convinced that it was not a channel that businesses would get any benefit from. Right? Utterly convinced.
You're not alone.
But I'm beginning to have my doubts.
Good.
With your kind of, you're on it every day.
Yeah, most days.
I don't think you refer to it as a day. You get down to smaller units.
Yeah, well that's it, isn't it? Do you think, in your experience, because you've got 500,000, I mean, God, how many businesses here with we'd long for 500,000 followers, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
How do you go about creating that? How do you think businesses can benefit from using TikTok? And going back to the reassurance and the storytelling, you're saying it's very difficult. You've got 3 to 6 seconds.
But that's why.
So how, with your experience in TikTok, how do you think a business? How do you think a holiday park? How do you think a kind of bathroom tile company? How do you think a digital agency, a user research company? How can we use TikTok to grab people's attention, get our story across so quickly?
With me at first, like when I got approached by brands to sort of have product placement with me, I didn't think that, I didn't know how I could be of benefit to them. And then it wasn't until I spoke to a couple of people that had more followers and they said, well, if you compare it to how much it would cost to advertise on Facebook compared to the reach that you've got, it actually works out quite well. And also, being an influencer of someone that makes authentic content, having an ad on like my page is a bit more authentic and people might view it in a bit of a better way. So I mean, with me, there's no real way of distinguishing how well a video is going to do. It could get, it's going to get a basic number because I've got followers, but it's not, you don't know it's going to go viral. So it's a tough nut. It is a tough one, but I think the chance that it can go so viral and it doesn't cost a lot to pay an influencer compared to like Facebook. I think it's worth taking a chance. It's mostly the reach that brands tend to want. Yeah.
It's just the reach.
It's the reach, and I'll
audience type and that kind of stuff. Does it work similar to Facebook in that regard? So you'll get brands of a certain type.
Yeah.
Coming to you because of your demographic.
It's been quite varied. So I've done stuff like I've promoted like phone chargers, lots of random products and services, mobile games, music. One of the first things people normally ask me is where my audience is. So I've got a large US-based audience. I'll get a lot of American companies, but it's quite broad really, that people don't seem too bothered about age ranges. I mean, it's mostly 25 to 34 that I have.
Yeah, but generally they're not too...
not too fast, it's quite broad. I normally just work to a brief, and the main things people want is reach with the viewership, and normally to put a link in my bio or something so that they can directly connect to that, download whatever.
I think TikTok is about authenticity, and people want, that's how you grow channels. It's about doing something that you're good at and you're interested at. So he came and joined us, knew how in TikTok worked inside out, but he would do some stuff for it and it would get a few views, and then on his own channel in his lunch break he'd do something, and by the end of the day he's got 5 million views on it, and it's just like, it's insane. So the things that work really well are when people are being really, I think, authentic, and like talking about I was talking to that chap over there earlier about his plasterer.
Matt,
There's stuff that you see on TikTok which are just people just doing their trade, right? They're painting, they're plastering things, and they're doing it in a way that's so captivating. They're getting huge followings, like insane amounts of views. And presumably somewhere they're building something that's of value to them. I don't know about brand placement. I know what it is, but I don't know how that transpires and what the brand might get out of that.
Do you think, with your 2 creative heads on, and your history of creative, does that slightly rough and ready kind of...
It's disposable.
Does that affect brand perception in any way, do you think? Does that affect...
No, because it depends who it wants. I think we've spent loads of money on making films, and then, people say, this is a beautiful thing. And it's got great like that. And then the stuff that we've chopped up from some of our project videos and put out on reels has got more views than any of those films, and it's just like, it's hard, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think social. I mean, we're talking about social media. I think social media is of a moment.
Disposable.
It's gone.
Yeah.
Literally. If you're spending more than an hour making a post, then
Yeah.
you need to probably think about changing your posts.
Yeah.
In some ways, I mean, maybe video is different to that because
Yeah.
it's a bit more time consuming to make, but you just got to be testing it and you get an instant reaction.
And you'd reinforce the authenticity part in terms of like what you did in your image and kind of really understanding what the business stands for, doing that user research and
Yeah.
kind of doubling down on that.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone's got anything they want to throw in. Don't feel you have to. We'll catch up afterwards. We're going to do another one of these before Easter. I'm going to put Dave on the spot now. Maybe before. He always says maybe. Isn't that what he gets on now? He's not maybe. He's got a digital agency, but it's never binary, Dave, with you, is it? So we do one early part of next year. I've already got a couple of speakers lined up for it, which I haven't told anyone about, but we'll get them to come along. Hopefully it'll be as relaxed as you guys were. I know you were a bit nervous, but you've done really well.
Oh, fine.
Talking us out of a recession. So basically, everyone's got to get on TikTok, right? And not worry too much about the way your brand's going to look on it. And Joe's available for any. If anyone wants to get to the 25, 30, 40.
He used to be on the panel.
He will be. Yeah, he's one of them. Thank you for coming along.
Thanks.
And thanks for coming along.